Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Parents, faculty, and esteemed guests, I'm honored to be delivering this speech to you today. Now, you guys look tired. We've been here for hours, so I promise I'm going to try to make this speech worth it. Connection, a meaningful relationship that links ideas, events, or people. That's the textbook definition. Now, let me ask you this. When you think of the word connection, what do you picture? Maybe two people holding hands? Maybe a red string? Maybe just a Wi-Fi signal. But that's not all connection is. It's not just physical, emotional, or even digital. It's biological. It's biological. And I don't just mean like in the metaphorical sense. It's not like you need connection to survive. And I don't mean that in the metaphorical sense. I mean that in the biological sense. The brain wiring, hormone balance, heart rate kind of sense. Let's look at the average human. In infants, touch is the first sense to develop at about 7 weeks of pregnancy. I'm sure there's parents here, mothers especially. You'd know that physical contact between a mother and her baby straight after birth is important. Can anyone tell me why? Anyone? Does anyone know why? Not really. It's biological. Yeah? Hormone? Do you know which hormone? Oxytocin, correct. The reason is oxytocin. According to a Scientific American magazine, an article that was posted in November 2005 states that orphan children who experience touch deprivation have altered levels of oxytocin. Now, for those of you who don't know, oxytocin is the hormone in the brain that builds trust and empathy and lowers anxiety. Babies who have experienced touch deprivation have altered levels of oxytocin, even years after being adopted. And they can also have altered levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Now, altered levels of cortisol or increased levels of it can damage brain tissue in the hippocampus. That's the part of the brain that deals with memory and learning. There was a particularly heartbreaking study in which babies were left without regular touch or physical contact just to observe the impact. And the results were absolutely devastating. They didn't just grow up with emotional issues. They had physical delays, cognitive damage. Some of them even died, not because they didn't have food, but because they lacked connection. Okay, well, that's pretty extreme. No one's doing that to their kid, right? How do we know that mild loneliness over a long period of time in childhood can have an impact in the long run? Well, does anyone know about the longest study on human happiness? Just show of hands if you've ever heard of it. Okay, no one has, so I'll tell you about it. The longest study on human happiness was conducted in Harvard University in 1938, and it took place over 80 years. It started during the Great Depression, perfect time to do an experiment on happiness. And the original sample was made up of 268 Harvard sophomores who were later, and the research later expanded to the offspring of those sophomores, who currently number over 1,300. Now, the point of the study was to observe how life experiences can change your health and aging over time. And the results were insane. It was shown that it wasn't fame or money that impacted health in the long run. It was having connection. Having close relationships was the best indicator of a long and happy life. It delayed physical and mental decline and was a stronger indicator and was a stronger predictor of happiness than IQ, social class, or even genes. Having people close to you is enough to keep you happy for a lifetime. Robert Waldinger, the psychiatrist who worked on this study, said in his own TED Talk that loneliness kills. It's as powerful as smoking or alcoholism. If you look at countries with collectivist cultures, All of them have, if you look at the countries with the longest expected lifespans for their people, they all have collectivist cultures and maintain strong bonds with their relations. People who live lonely lives die earlier. They're more likely to suffer from stroke, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, arthritis. They're also more likely than the average person to develop depression, anxiety, eating disorders, alcoholism, and sleep deprivation. Can you imagine that being lonely can impact you that much? Well, it can. Post-2020, there has been a loneliness epidemic in the world, the second world health crisis, you might call it. My mom gave me a phone pretty late compared to my peers. I remember a lot of moments in my life when I'd just be sitting with my friends, and then the conversation would sputter out, as they do, and everyone would just pull out their phones and start scrolling instead of actually trying to continue the conversation. People do this all the time, and I know some of you might be thinking of your kids, but adults do this too. Think of the speech next time you experience this in real life, and you'll start noticing this behavior, not just in others, but in yourself. People are starving for real human connection, the kind where you're with people who your soul feels at home with. But let's be honest, that's terrifying. That kind of connection takes effort, vulnerability, presence. It's so much easier to be distant and keep everything surface level. But the cost of that is a kind of loneliness that the price of that is a kind of loneliness that no amount of scrolling can fix. So what do? We start small. We drop the phones. We make eye contact. We ask, "How are you?" And we listen, even if what the other person says is the most boring thing you've ever heard in your life. We stop treating connection like a luxury and start treating it like the lifeline it is, because it's biological. Connection isn't just about feeling good. It's about taking care of yourself. Isolation kills, and sometimes all you really need is human connection. Thank you.